these are extraordinary times. I get my energy from creating things. I talk about those things once I've created in front of live audience, people with whom I can interact live, people with whom I can share and I can learn. Also, I don't prepare my lectures or my talks. I talk about things which I have built with my bare hands. So no script is required, no rehearsals are required. Also, I hope that goddess of knowledge will come to my rescue so that some meaningfulness comes through my sharing with folks who most often than not are much more talented and much more creative than I am or I will be. Now, the reason why I said these are extraordinary times, and extraordinary times from the perspective of creating things and creating remarkable things, and much more important, creating remarkable things which can sustain and live a longer duration, which have longevity. And the reason why I say that is because fear, fatigue, and fatality dominates today, dominates in our thinking, it dominates in our interaction. It's prevalent while I'm talking to you because I can't touch you, I can't see you. And with fear, fatigue, and fatality, how can you create? How can you design? And then there's another element comes. That if it can lead to fearlessness, creative fearlessness, and if it can open our senses to design, but design with a thinking that it will not solve today's problem, but it arguably or probably will change how humans will be in future, or at least in near future, then this discussion or this talk makes a lot of sense. And hence that would be the core theme, my talk, which would be very different than what I usually do, where I share tons of code, open up, rip apart machines which I have built, take risks by showing robots which have not yet been tested in live environments. Those are simpler things today. They look far more simpler than this force, this driving force, which is essential, creative fuel, which is required so that we can think, we can observe, we can design. And if we can design, then the data and technology will be the easier blanks to fill. And that's the whole premises of my discussion, of my talk. So let's start this small interaction for roughly 15-20 minutes. Before I start my discussion, or before I start my talk, it is customary to introduce myself. That's the most difficult part. I don't know who I am today. In last 3 months, I have been janitor, I have been a driver, I have been a nurse, I have been an administrator, I have been an engineer, I have been a pilot, and I have invented things. We will come to invention. Let's focus on why we design, what's the process of design, and then a little bit on how can we build things if we design for a particular purpose. If our observations are pure, if our observations are grounded, if they are real, then even a simple design can be a remarkable design. There would be nothing like a bad or a wrong or an ugly design, because it comes from personal experience, comes from the gut, something which has moved us. And if that gives birth to a product, to a service, then there's a divinity associated with that service. There is a purity associated with that product. How can that be flawed? How can that be not useful? It may not be useful for everyone, but it may be useful. It may be even life-saving for at least few. And if that is the core of design, then we have tons of data and science behind that particular data to make it meaningful. And we have potent technologies, mostly in a space of commodity, which we can use, apply to build remarkable products and services, beautiful things in a very cost-effective way. We are living in an era, which I call as pre-vaccination era, where fear of contact dominates. We are not going to live in this forever. So be careful when we design or when we build things based on this fear only. If this fear motivates us to solve a problem and build a product which can take us smoothly into an era which is a post-vaccination era, then that would be something which would be remarkable, sustainable, which will live for a very, very long time. So while there is a certainty associated with the motivation to design or to build now, uncertainty can fuel the engineering of it. It can fuel which technology I have to use, what kind of data we have today, which can predict the longevity of that tech and application of that particular tech in future. And that's how the importance of design and the validity of design needs to be fixed, needs to be done, needs to be part and parcel thinking of design. Technology can be applied to fulfill goals of compassion. Now I'll talk briefly and very briefly about data and technology because they're very important, but they're easy to learn. Only thing which is required is hardcore intentions for a very long duration, A universal language between humans and machines have appeared. Unfortunately, people who make decisions haven't realized it because they don't belong to that age group. It is an essential element today to utilize that language and fix it and apply it in any services or any product we are building, because interactivity of machine and humans is already there and will develop, and it will become the dominant force and dominant language, surpassing any language which we have today. Machine learning will play a very, very important role, and I've written a detailed paper on this. I'll touch upon that paper for only a couple of minutes later on. But the universal truth is that a language has already appeared and will become much more potent in times to come. So anything which we design, we need to be considerate of this particular truth. Second thing, we are living in a times where cost of compute is going down, and it is going down dramatically. And that has given heart to unstructured languages. We are truly in a space where we can actually move from a structured logic of if then else to a realms of machine learning and even to an extent deep learning, where AI can beautify any product and services which we are trying to build, because economics of compute and economics of storage are no more a constraint today. Not for today. When I wrote a code, and this code is easily available, I was convinced that every interaction which happens on internet is an opportunity for any enterprise. If we are able to convert this conversation into mathematical vectors, and those mathematical vectors can provide fuel to a logic in machine learning. And once we have enormous amount of data and stable results, accuracy of deep learning will be very, very high. So once we are in a zone where we have converted our ideation into a design, then technology is not a constraint. Not a constraint today. It is just the speed of execution and maturity and strength of our investment which decides and dictates the success of ideation and design to the reality of product and services. And I hope some of it will make sense. And even if we may live for next few quarters in a constraint of cash, my hope is that we will not live in a constraint of culture of creativity. Thank you very much for listening to me.